Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Okay, so today we're talking about how avoidants numb their feelings and why they're able to get away with not showing all the feelings that every human being has. How are they able to be so detached when they do love you so much? How is that combination possible? Well, normally it's because of a lot of these things. They're not always as extreme, but a lot of them are. And I'm sharing this with you because of a couple things. One, if you're married to an avoidant, you probably deal with these things and they might be, causing issues in your marriage. Okay. So it's one thing. The second thing is if you're going to get married to an avoidant and they don't heal, you will see at least one of these things typically. Okay. And the last one is the most, I guess, positive version of this is if you see these behaviors, that means if you can help your partner, it's not your job to, but maybe prompt them, have a conversation because it's your relationship too, right? To heal, likely they'll be able to be more emotional and expressive towards you because they use these things to suppress their feelings. So if they're removed, the suppression is no longer there. And then they will able to get better at coping with those extreme emotions that they're running from. And those extreme emotions will be anything. Avoidance will lean into this when they're stressed at work. They will lean into this when they're mad. They will lean into this when they're falling in love. And so any expression of emotion. And so I would like to touch on this. Now, there are a lot of things about this situation, and I can't talk about all of them on YouTube, okay? And so if there's anything specific that you're battling with or struggling with in a relationship with an avoidant, or even yourself, we can talk about that in our consultation. Like we can have a session together that's pinned in the comments. During those sessions, we can talk about anything, right? They're protected. However, on YouTube, I can't. And so I do want you guys to be mindful of that. And these are really tricky dynamics. And you, if you're the person who is a partner of an avoidant, you can help some of these things. And we can talk about those things together in our call so that we can start stepping away from some of these issues, okay? And so the first one is typically some sort of competitive or competition behavior combined with the illusion of control. Okay, so that's a lot. And so let's unpack it so we can figure out what this even means. Okay. And so gambling, video games, even day trading. Okay. And I'm not saying day trading is like an issue. I'm just saying it can be. Okay. And so first, I want to point out this video is for educational purposes only. I am making this video simply for educational purposes. I am not making this video to tell you to do any of these things. Okay. Simply educational, right? So what happens is these behaviors can give the feeling of competition while having a sense of control. They feel like they have a sense of control. Okay. So gambling, let's just say it's going to be like more like blackjack, poker, things like that. It could even be like sports betting. Okay. Where they feel like their bet is logical, which it is. Like there is logic to these things. I think that there's nothing necessarily wrong with the idea of doing this, but it's the fact of why they continue to do this. Okay. And so let's just use, why not we use video gaming as an example for the first example, and then we might move on to other ones. Let's just say they always involve themselves in video games or video game competitions, or they're always on their game. What they feel is that they can control the outcome of this game. They can control what they get out of it, even though not all the time can they, because there's so many variables that's not control. But that is the interesting complexity to these issues, okay? It's not fully control. It's them aiming to be control. It's never enough. And that feeling, sadly, is incredibly familiar to them. When they were younger, nothing was ever enough. They had to be better, always the best. If you run a mile in 7 minutes, you got to do it 6 minutes, right? It has to be better. It has to always be better. And because of that, they are attached to that feeling. Like it's sad to say it like that, but it's very similar to an anxious person. You are so anxious, preoccupied. You're so used to somebody maybe being critical and not liking you. Not that it's not liking you. It's like they always tell you you're too much, or they might be very detached or disinterested. You're used to that feeling because that's how your parents were. And so you are familiar with those feelings. And so and you get triggered by those feelings because you're so familiar, but you can't leave that pattern, at least not right away, because you actually somewhere believe you deserve that. The good part is usually if you're with an avoidant, they actually do like you. They just have that, like they just act like that. Your parents, they probably cared about you as well. I'm actually not sure. I can't speak to that. But they didn't show it because they were abnormal and neglectful. And so avoidants have a very similar issue. This one particularly is much more common with male avoidants. Sorry. It's almost, I have seen female avoidants do this, but it's much less common. Like the percentage is much lower. Like there's a prominent gap between male avoidants doing this and female avoidants doing this, the competition, right? And they feel a sense of control that they're always trying to reach, but it's not fully in control. So with poker, there is a percentage that is luck based, right? Video games, there is some luck components or other people playing, whatever it may be. There's some things out of your control. Day trading, we can't control the market, right? And so there's that sense where you think you're in control, but you're not fully in control. So that's where that comes from. Now, the next one is eating rituals. This one is more common with female avoidance. Female avoidance, it can be so extreme and so strict that they live their life around these eating rituals. Okay, so I don't want to touch too much on this, but if you are with a person who has these issues, we can talk about it in our call, but I can't talk about it too much here because it can be pretty extreme. So I'm going to put it pretty briefly, okay? They have high focus on health, eating, or numbing feelings. I don't want to talk too much about that, but any sort of behaviors where I'm not encouraging these behaviors, okay? And so we are going to talk about this a little bit, but I'm not encouraging any of these behaviors, okay? And so it can be like specific rituals like taking X amount of vitamins. It can be, any sort of eating habits. I really don't want to talk about this too much, okay? The next one is exercise rituals. This one is common with both genders, but usually it looks a little different. They have high focus on progress. You will see that that's the main thing. They have a high focus on progress, okay? The next one is substance use, okay? It feels like the ability and the power to remove emotions temporarily. That's why they like this one, okay? The next one is overworking and busyness. They feel constant need for productivity, and they usually like feeling productive. They don't like people saying having a good day. They prefer have a productive day, okay? They avoid being with their thoughts, and they really like overworking and producing something, okay? The next one is shopping. I have rarely seen dismissive avoidants do this. Fearful avoidance do. I don't remember if I've seen a dismissive avoidant have this issue. Maybe, but it's very rare. I don't remember. Fearful avoidance and sometimes even anxious preoccupied do this, but most common with fearful avoidance, actually. They use shopping and like almost retail purchasing to temporarily make them feel better, okay? Now, the next one is also something I see with fearful avoidance. They might use relationships to actually seek validation through intimacy. So they might actually like rebound a lot. They might monkey branch because they're very uncomfortable with the feeling. So this might happen if they've had a really intense breakup. They might jump to the next person while still texting you. And it's very disrespectful to them, to you. It's hurtful. But this is why. That other person, sadly, they're using that person to numb their feelings. So I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.